Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari. He's also the CEO of the Newsy Center for Strategic Engagement. Colonel, thank you for being here. My understanding is then Defense Secretary Esper also made that call to a Chinese counterpart. So I want to set that aside. There's another element to this, and that is that apparently Milley, he told his subordinates, remember, there is a process before any nuclear launch could ever happen, essentially reminding them, you don't just press a button because the president said so. Did Milley do something radical or treasonous there, or was this an ever so slightly within bounds action?
Well, I guess good to be here. I would say that you got to go back to what Acting Secretary Chris Miller said. When he said that I did not authorize this, my question would be to General Milley in Austin as to, if you were not authorized, why did you make that phone call? Keep in mind that his so-called counterpart is really not his counterpart. General Milley is more of a staff officer that gives advice. The chain of command goes through, in this case, would have been through Chris Miller directly to the president. General Milley would be just an advisor. But when you look at the individual he talked to, which is General Lee, on the other side, he is in a command authority within that particular structure, which is the Department of the Central Military Commission that was established on the 11th January of 2016. So my issue would be, if you were not authorized, how did you come? Who gave you the order to make that call?
I see. Sounds like, Colonel, that you're saying Milley was freelancing here, that it wasn't within the general purview and in order of events that happened. So if that is the case, and I don't know that to be the case right now, there's a lot of conjecture. If that is the case, should he resign?
Well, if that's the case, he should be fired, not resign. I mean, you're talking about a clear violation.
President Biden standing by him.
You can stand by him. He's a president, but in the reality of the scheme of things, you got to understand the type of damage you're doing throughout the entire chain of command. And I think in this case, General Milley would have to reconsider. And General Austin, I think, is a smart man to realize that the type of effects it would have throughout the entire structure of the force, where the force is not trusting as to what the chain of command looks like. In a very serious case in which we might be going to war with China, then the commands would have to understand who's really giving the orders here. It is not supposed to come from the Joint Chief of Staff.
Explain that then to me, because I'm going to ask you to do a very hard assignment. In 60 seconds, what is the protocol for launching that war or launching a missile? Because we all know about the nuclear football. It travels everywhere with the president. It has this menu of strike options. If he decides to use one, what happens?
Well, there's some things we cannot talk here because he's got other type of military capabilities that we're not going to discuss on this show right now. And those particular capabilities sometimes are not even briefed to the president, but briefed to others. It has happened in the past. Those capabilities would be the first ones to consider. And I will tell you right now, the Joint Chief of Staffs do not have even the right to be read on those particular strike capabilities. Sometimes you don't even share them with the presidents. But in this case, it would have to go with the Secretary of Defense directly from those ground commanders to the Secretary of Defense and to the president for him to make that decision.
So there's a labyrinth of networks here that it goes before. You know, a lot of us picture a president pushing a button on a desk. Doesn't happen that way. Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Newsy.
Well done.